Hi, it's Sandy Parker, and welcome to Crafting for Almost Everyone. So I'm going to be making my Christmas postcards, Christmas cards. Some are going to be postcards, some are going to be cards. I'm starting out with the Amy Tangerine postcard stamp that I just got. I cut off, there was a big floral design up in this corner, and I cut that off and stamped all of mine with different colors. I used golds, and I used reds, and blacks, and greens, and I think they really came out pretty on the back. Then I'm doing an assembly line fashion for part of the card, and that is I'm doing the tree limb and the first stamp of the bell. And this set comes from the Sunny Studios set that has a bell and a bow and also a Christmas ornament and this great limb. And I love the bell and the limb, so I decided I would go with those as my centerpiece. And so what I'm going to show you is how I'm stamping the first set, the first section, which is the bell and the limb. So I'm taking my stamp that's already got the postcard on the back, and it doesn't matter if the postcard is backwards or left or right, because the image is going to be an up and down image, so it doesn't really matter. I'm going to stamp it, the limb, with a few different colors, and I'm starting with a Stampin' Up Old Olive and using that on the branch. And I'm using soft granite on, I think it's Hero Arts, on the ball. That's a bell, not a ball. And if you can't see that part, it doesn't matter, because that's just the side I'm inking on. You'll see it when I stamp it. And I really have to rub this well, because it's so ornate that you miss little, so you can see little pieces that you miss as you go, so you have to really rub it. And then I'm going to re-stamp the bell. I'm going to do that one more time before I do the rest of the limb, because I like to make sure the bell is right, and it looks pretty good. There's a little spot in the bottom that I don't like. Let's see if I can fix that little spot. There we go. Okay, so then the next thing I'm going to do, you can do this two different ways. You can either draw on the limb, and if you want a browner image, I'm just using water-based markers, cheap. I'm using some that are Crayolas, and this one I couldn't even find a name on this brand. So you can use whatever kind of marker you want. I hope my head's not in this. You can do it this way, or you can stamp it right on the stamp, and I've done it both ways, and I don't think either way makes a big difference. And I'm not even, you can see I'm not even being that clean about it, because I'm going to be inking over this with several different inks. So my next one I'm going to use is Pear Pizazz. I wanted to have a few different greens in my background, my limb. I want it to look more real, and if you have just one color, it looks really flat, and I didn't want that, so I'm playing with it until I liked it. And it took me a while to get the combinations of colors I liked to make me happy. You can see it's still, some of those just don't want to stamp over. Now I'm going to use a Crayola marker. It's a darker green, and I'm going to really ink up the entire evergreen limb with that, and it makes a big difference. Once you put this color on, it's like a blue-green, and if you've ever seen some evergreens out in the forest, they are more of a blue-green color than a pure green. So I'm going to really rub this one well, because like I said, this one really needs, it has a lot of definition in it, so you really need to be careful that you don't miss. Like, see, I just keep missing that one spot. I'm going to see if I can just, maybe I'm not pushing hard enough. That's probably it. Go over it one more time. I'm going to go over the whole thing one last time with Old Olive, just to make sure that I cover that branch. I don't like that brown to be really, really super brown, and when you ink over the whole thing, it makes that brown fade into the background. Okay, much better. So we'll cover these back up and go on to the next phase. When I did this the first time, I did a practice round and I tried using like silvers on the bell, because I thought, well, you know, that would be so much prettier if you use silvers. And what I found out was that didn't really do as nice of a job as just changing out the bell from lighter gray to darker gray. And I'm just going to put my next layer of bell. When you line this piece up, it's pretty easy to line up because there's well, I can take that off in a second. I'm going to take my limb off now. I don't need it anymore. In case I didn't say this already, my stamp sets, one came from Sunny Studios, and it's called Holiday Style. Yeah, I think it's called Holiday Style. And I'm taking the Merry Christmas sentiment from a Penny Black, the Wonder, T for Transparent. I don't know. That's the stamp set for Merry Christmas. And the colors I'm using on the next section, I've put the second part of the bell down, and I'm going to be using the first section. I used soft granite. This one I'm going to be using a Memento called London Fog, and the very last level I'm using Onyx Black. Yeah, that's those. And then for my sentiment, I'm going to be using Cherry Cobbler from Stampin Up. So far, that's the plan. Hopefully. So let me put a little bit of the gray on my ball, and I'm going to do my sentiment at the same time. And hopefully, sometimes your acrylic stamps aren't as high as each other if they're from a different manufacturer, so you run the risk of one of the images not stamping at all because it's too low compared to the other ones. But everything came out pretty good. I'm going to re-stamp everything because with the MISTI you have that option, and I like to do everything. If you've watched me before, you know I do this. I like to stamp everything at least a couple times when I'm doing especially sentiments, because I really want to make sure that they come out nice and bold and they look a lot more professionally done if you do it that way. Those aren't newer stamps, and what I do if I have a new stamp that does that, where it doesn't seem to take the ink, I run a little nail file that's not very strong, you know, like not it's not a new one, it's been around a while. I use that on it and just very lightly go over it, and it helps it to absorb the ink. I know like Jennifer McGuire says, oh, you just clean them really well and that makes them accept the ink. I don't have that luck. And the Frugal Crafter Lindsay says you just use a little bit of nail file on it, and that has worked for me. Let me stamp all of them with this section and then I'll be back. My last step is to do the top layer of the bell, and I've already stamped it once because I forgot that I was going to videotape it, and this is the last one. And there were 3 layers for the bell, and so what I've done is I've done everything in an assembly line. I did the branch and the first layer of the bell together the first round. Then in the second round I stamped the second layer and the sentiment, and then in the third round I just did the black. I didn't want to, I was worried that if I got the black inks, you know, all over the place, I'd end up with a mess, so that's why I did it by itself. So now I'm going to show you the different ways that I'm going to send these cards. Remember, these are postcards, so I need to make a string to go from my bell to my branch, and I'm not going to put a hook on it. I'm just going to make it look like a silver thread, and I'm using a gel pen for those. And so that's all I'm going to need to do for the postcards. Just I'll do a couple more, and so my postcards are basically done. Then the next thing I want to do is I want to make a simple card, but make it not a full fold. I'm going to write on the back of this. So what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to take one of my postcards. This one's kind of yucky, so I'm going to get a better one. I'm going to take one of my postcards, and I've threaded a needle, and I'm going to get my pokey tool, and I'm just going to poke a little hole right on the, we'll call it right by the top of our bell, and I have a needle and some silver thread, and I'm just gonna go in through the bottom and then stick it in through the top, and then I'm just going to take some Scotch tape, because it doesn't take much to hold string. You don't have to glue it or anything. So I'm just going to Scotch tape my two pieces. Whoop, going the wrong direction here. This is the end I want to pull, because I don't want to take up a ton of it. Okay. Those two, then I'm just going to snip them off. Of course, my scissors left the building again, or just moved out of my general area to see them. And then I left, so that's that. Now I could put a little bow right there, but I'm not really good with doing a bow with thread. Okay, so I tied a little bow. It was very hard to do with that string. I will forewarn you that if you do try to do it. And all I'm going to do then is back it on a piece of red cardstock that's 1/4 inch bigger. And these, the papers I cut are 5.5 inches high by 4 1/4 inches wide. So just so you were wondering dimensionally. And I want to make sure I put enough adhesive on it that the little pieces that I put with the string, that they don't come undone. And the paper I made just a little bit bigger. There's that one. I think I did cut these down so they would fit in a regular envelope. I might be lying about that. Yeah, might be. I'll have to cut this one down a little bit. There is one I did cut down. I don't know which one it is, but anyway, I did cut one down so it would fit in an envelope. I think it was this one then. You never know what the heck I'm thinking. Anyway, so we know now the ones that I'm going to put in the envelope, I'm going to do the string on. So let me do my strings and I'll come back. It's the same process. So on the postcard ones, I drew a line with a ruler And then I've just made these kind of loopy bows with my silver gel pen. And what I found was the ones that looked the best were the ones that I made kind of longer and thinner, like kind of like that. They look the best of the, rather than the little wee ones. Since these are postcards, obviously I can't attach anything to them. So that's my postcards. Then from the postcards, we're going to go to the next step, which is a basic card that's just going to go into, it's one sheet card that I just did put on a backing. And that one I did put a silver string and the silver bow. And boy, those bows are hard to tie. I'm not kidding, really hard. And then I thought what I would do is take some washi that is glittery and attach it to the back of my envelope. And I'll just cut off the edges that are so weird. So then my one sheet card is going to go into an envelope like that. Then the next way I did it was a full-blown card. We're going to do a red backing, and I cut this one, the card down, the postcard, I cut down to 1/4 of an inch smaller on the top and the bottom, so it would fit in a A2 size envelope and on an A2 size card. And I'm making my card be just like that, hopefully. And so then that one will also go into an envelope. I'll just put a little backing on that envelope. I normally don't like to waste that much on the edges, but because this has such a weird, the bottom and the top of it are kind of hacked, I just didn't want to have it like that. Okay, so in the end, I have a regular envelope and regular card. So this one is your, the typical card that you would get in the mail. Then this one is one piece of paper and an envelope, and it's the same size. And I did a red one the same way. Then the rest I made all postcards, and they all have the no string. They just have the silver gel pen on them. All in all, I think they all came out really nice. It was an easy, as far as assembly line goes, the longest part was this triple stamping of the bell, but other than that, I think that the process itself was pretty fast and easy. All in all, this was a pretty easy project, and at least my Christmas cards are done. A little bit late, but at least they're done. I hope you'll give this a thumbs up and subscribe, and thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.